Welcome back to my channel, friends. Today I will be doing a video that I get a lot of DMs about. It is very highly requested, and it is my eating disorder story and how I recovered and got into fitness. So, I do not know how long this is going to be. Sorry if it's long. My eating disorder took up about 4 years of my life, so there's a lot that happened. But I will try to condense it as much as I can, but let's get to it. So growing up, I never struggled with anything. I just lived a normal life. I had friends, I played sports. It was just like, there were no issues. When I was transitioning to high school from 8th grade, I went to the private grade school in my town, and there were only about 38 kids in my grade, which is like super tiny, and the whole school had like 300 kids, like K through 8th grade. So super small, and I was transitioning to the public school in my town, and it wasn't like huge, but it was a lot bigger. My grade had 170 kids in it, so that was like a huge transition. I did know a few people, but not a lot of them. So summer going into freshman year, I tried out for the volleyball team, and I would do like conditioning 3 times a week in the morning, and a couple of my friends tried out too, so it wasn't bad or anything. And I always have been active, so I enjoyed working out, and I didn't really have a problem with it. But you know, when you play sports, you have to get a physical. So I went to the doctor to get my physical, and they noticed. They're like, oh, your height has increased, but your weight went down, and that's like a red flag. They talked to my dad, and they're like, do you think she has any like issues, like she could possibly have an eating disorder? And my dad was like, no, like she can eat whatever. And honestly, at the time, I don't even think I really had an eating disorder. It was more so anything, I would be like super into exercise. Like the days I did not have conditioning for volleyball, I would like run on the treadmill downstairs, but it wasn't like excessive amount. It was just, I always wanted to be doing something. I did have a Fitbit though, and I was like very like rigid and like had to get at least 10,000 steps, and I would like walk around my house until I like got the 10,000 steps. So that would be like the only kind of like thing I was like super strict about. But honestly, I don't really think my eating disorder like was fully came on at that point. Another thing I did do that they say is like kind of another like red flag is when you like cook like or bake unhealthy food and make it for people, but you don't eat it. And I definitely did that. One of my friends like would come over a lot after conditioning from volleyball, and I would bake literally all the time, but I would not really eat any of it. It would be really rare if I did eat something of it. So that was kind of another like red flag, I guess. But I don't think my eating disorder was like full blown, definitely not. So the doctor told my parents, they're like, well, she still needs to like gain weight. Naturally, I've just always been a really small, tiny person. Like I was the smallest person in my grade, even though my grade was like not huge. There were like 38 people in it. But I was just always like a runt, my dad would even call me. So my parents told me that I needed to gain weight, and I really was not on board with it. I didn't want to like lose weight or anything, but I was just like, I like the way I am, so I don't want to like get bigger. Fast forward a little bit to the first day of school. That's when I found out if we made the volleyball team or not, and I ended up not making it. So that was a little upsetting. But they told me, they were like, well, you're really good at running, because one of the things we had to do in conditioning was like, one of the stations was we had to run a mile, and like my time was always like faster than anyone else's. And they're like, cross country would like love to have you on there. So I was like, okay, I'll do cross country. I mean, I'm someone who's like naturally competitive, and I wanted to do something But my parents were not on board with that because I did not gain weight like I was supposed to. So I couldn't do cross country, so I was a little sad about that. At this point, I was probably eating disorder wise, like kind of how I was before, but maybe a little more restrictive, but definitely I was not totally into it yet. I wasn't making the progress like I was supposed to. I was not putting on weight. So in September of freshman year, my parents decided to put me in like therapy with my parents. It was like once a week on Wednesdays, I think, and I would just get weighed and then they would just like talk to me about stuff. And honestly, I'm someone who does not like talking about my feelings, so I kind of just like didn't say much, or kind of just like said what they wanted to hear. I kept doing that, and at this point I say definitely had an eating disorder. I was losing weight, I was restricting, and every time I had to get weighed at my therapy sessions, I drink water and I would put on layers of clothing to make me weigh more than I actually did. But eventually it does catch up to you, and I was drinking probably like 8 bottles of water, wearing like 3 pairs of pants, like 5 or 6 shirts, like it was insane. And it got to the point I just kept losing weight where I had to do that every time, and I still like looked like I lost weight because like I was losing weight and I honestly couldn't do anything else to make myself weigh anymore. I kept going to therapy, and then one day in January my mom took me in there, and I don't know, I thought maybe like the time had changed or something, and she was signing me up for treatment, like inpatient, and I was like, no. Like, I am not doing this. I ended up throwing a humongous fit. I was hysterical, to say the least. Like, I was psychotic, honestly. And I was crying. I said I was going to kill myself, and never, do not joke about killing yourself, because I ended up in the hospital because I was saying things like that, and like they have to like take you to the hospital even if you're joking about it, I guess, because they don't know. But I never like struggled with like suicidal thoughts or anything, which I know like comes with some people's eating disorders, but I never dealt with that, and my parents like knew I didn't. But anyway, so I was at the hospital, and they were like, well, is she like actually fine? Parents are like, she's like not gonna kill herself, she's fine. Because I wasn't. My parents are like, well, are you actually like gonna make a change? Because my mom was like signing me up for treatment, and I was like, yeah, I'll do whatever, blah blah blah, like bunch of bullshit. Like, no, I wasn't gonna do whatever. I was gonna restrict, I was gonna hide food, I was just gonna keep doing what I was doing. One day in February, my parents told me that our therapy appointment time had changed to in the morning because my therapist couldn't be there that afternoon. So we drove over to where I had therapy, and instead of walking into the door where my therapist was, we walked into another door, and that is where treatment center was. Like, they were in the same building. My parents were signing me up for a 6-hour treatment, and I was not happy about this. And at this time, like, I knew I couldn't get away with throwing a fit or doing anything because they knew I was not going to make a change. On my first day, I threw a huge fit. I was cussing people out, throwing things. I was just very upset and very psychotic, to say the least. It's just like, wow. Some of the things I did, I'm just like, it's crazy what an eating disorder can make you do. But so that day in treatment, I didn't do anything. I literally sat in a chair and cried for 6 hours. So my parents came to pick me up, and when I told them I didn't eat anything, I sat in a chair and cried all day. They're like, what? Like, aren't they, like, they're really, like, confused, like, why I didn't eat anything or why they didn't do anything about it. But I went home that night, and then the next day I was supposed to go to treatment again, but I tried to be sneaky, and I hopped on the school bus and went to school. But obviously my parents weren't going to let me get away with it, and they came to school and picked me up and drove me back to the treatment center. When I got there, I was crying, and I was like, I'll do anything, I promise. And my parents are like, no, like, we wish you, like, would. We, like, wish we could believe you, but, like, we know you're not going to. So they took me back up to where the treatment center was, and I was, like, crying hysterically again. And one of the workers there was like, you're going to eat this Luna bar or you're going to the hospital. And I was like, well, I went to the hospital last time and I just, like, got out of it, so I'm just gonna do that again. I'm not gonna eat, like, this Luna bar or whatever. So I ended up going to the hospital. However, this time it was not okay, I can say I'll do whatever and leave, because my parents already knew at that point that was not going to happen. So I got weighed, and they were shocked. My weight was 10 pounds less than what my parents initially thought it was, because I did not drink all the water and I was not wearing all the clothes like I did when I normally got weighed, because I thought I was going to school that day because I, like, hopped on the school bus. My weight was already very low, and once they saw that, I think their hearts just dropped even more. I was admitted into the ICU for 2 or 3 days, and then I was in the hospital for, like, 2 weeks. After the hospital, I went to residential care at the treatment center they originally took me to for a month. And after that, I slowly stepped down to, like, 10-hour and 6-hour and then 3-hour, and then eventually I was discharged. After I was discharged, that was in August, and I got admitted into the hospital in February, so I was in treatment for about 6 months of my life. It was not a good time. After I got discharged, I started losing weight again, because I was like, oh, I'm out, so I can just, like, lose weight, because at that point, like, my mindset was not any better. I still, like, definitely had my eating disorder. So from August to October, I probably lost about 15 pounds, and my parents sent me back to treatment in October, because they're like, we're not going to let you spiral and get as low as you were before. So I was in treatment from October to December. I didn't do any residential. I did 10-hour and then 6-hour and then 3-hour, and then I eventually was discharged. After I was discharged from treatment for the second time in December of sophomore year, January of my sophomore year, I joined a gym and started working out. My mindset was still not at a good place. I wanted to lose weight still. I did not like where I was at. I was very uncomfortable with it. And I slowly just, like, started losing weight again. And it just, like, restricting myself more and more again. Fast forward to summer, going into senior year. That July, my parents sent me back to treatment because my weight, like, started getting very low, like, the first time I was in treatment. I was there residential care because my weight was so low for a month, and school was going to start up very soon, so I did 10-hour for about a week, and I told my parents, I'm like, I cannot miss any more school. I missed pretty much all of second semester of freshman year and half of first semester of sophomore year, and I was like, I can't miss any more school. I finally had a decent amount of friends. Like, I actually like enjoyed, not that I never did not enjoy going to school, but like I said, I had friends, so it was like a lot more fun than it was before. Parents were like, okay, we'll put you in 3-hour then. So my parents told the people at the treatment center that they wanted me in 3-hour, and they were not about that. They told them that I was playing them, and they dropped me. So when I came home from the first day of school, I thought I was going to be in like 3-hour care, because that's like what my parents said they were going to do, and found out that I got dropped. I was actually really happy about it, because honestly, like, treatment is not helpful for me. I know it can be very helpful for other people, but like, this was my 3rd time being there, and like, I don't know, they treat you like a child, at least where I was treated like I was 5 years old. I couldn't do anything. Just not how I wanted to recover. And honestly, when I was in treatment, I didn't really want to recover. At this point, like, I knew I needed to make a change. I wanted recovery. Actually, I did not want to live my life with an eating disorder. I wanted a normal life. My mindset was like in a good place, but my actions weren't really, I wasn't making strides towards recovery. I wasn't like going the opposite direction, but I was just kind of stagnant. Halfway through first semester of senior year, I started to like actually work towards recovery. I started eating more. I wanted to start working out and exercising again. I missed it so much, and I knew at where my body was not at a good place to even exercise. I wanted to start lifting, and I had nothing to build from, so I knew that I needed to eat more. My mindset was at a pretty good place. In February of my senior year, I got to a decent weight. I had more mass on my body, and I started working out and lifting weights in my basement. I didn't do any cardio or anything. I just lifted probably 3 or 4 times a week in my basement. My dad kind of helped me out a little bit with that. So yeah, things were going really good. I was still gaining weight, and my mindset was like even a better place then. After I started lifting in my basement, I finally joined a gym on my 18th birthday, and I've been lifting there ever since. In July of that year, I finally decided to make my Instagram account, which if you don't follow me, Courtney Fit, you should. And yeah, I've just been lifting ever since. Now I'm just at a really good place. Currently still trying to put on some more mass. I want to get a little bigger. I want to put some muscle on, but just taking it day by day. I don't really struggle with my eating disorder anymore. I don't have any like thoughts like I used to. I never restrict. I never feel bad for going out to eat or guilty if I eat something unhealthy. I don't really have like food rules. Like, it's just like so nice, honestly. And I don't know why. I don't know how I put up with that for 4 years, honestly, because it was hell. But I'm so happy I finally got to a place where I do not have to deal with that anymore, and I can just honestly live my life and do what I want. And if you are struggling with an eating disorder, I just want you to know that you can recover. It is hard as hell. I'm not going to lie. You get uncomfortable. It is not easy, but if you put your mind to it, you honestly can recover. And one thing I also want to like touch on is people can want you to recover, but a change is not going to happen until you truly want it. And for me, like I said, I went to treatment multiple times, and at that point I did not want to recover, and that's a big part of why not only did I not like the treatment setting and it wasn't helpful for me, but I didn't want to recover at that time. So even if it was helpful, I wasn't going to recover because I didn't want it for myself. You have to want it for yourself. And until you are willing to do whatever it takes, you're not going to reach recovery. So that was my eating disorder recovery story. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one.